Hey, it's Chris, Liege Games. Let's do this. So we're just talking about Skyrise. Skyrise from Roxley Games. What are the things that you need to know on whether or not this game should be something that you're backing on crowdfunding, giving it retail, or whether or not it's right for you as a whole? All in one video, short, sweet, to the point, to help you make a decision before the end of the campaign. Let's do this. So this is a game of auctioning, bidding, area control-esque placement with a unique building numbering mechanic in order to determine your bidding, more akin to Ra, if you will, but also done in a completely different way. This is Roxley, and so the point number one I'm going to make is price point, because that's the one that most of you are going to be concerned about. Is this a good value? Is this a good price point? The collector's pledge, $96, basically everything. Then you have the $49 Skyrise Essentials Edition. Now, the interesting thing with this Collector's Edition, I don't believe you're getting the two other add-ons that they're offering down below, the Sundrop, essentially, the shaded miniatures, as well as the wooden tokens. And those are two big additional things that are going to buffer it probably closer to $100 US even before the price point is finished before shipping. Now, why is that a little bit either or? Roxley has been well known for offering a better deal during the campaign. And that is where I'm going with this, is if you want these specific editions, unless you're going to try and luck out on the secondary market for someone selling at cost or lower, which usually doesn't happen with Roxley Games, you're going to be having to get the best price here. So that's one point to consider. So I'm going to use Radlands as the example because this is a relatively good example. Now, it's not terrible difference, $40 US for the deluxe. You go over to Radland's website right now, $40 for the deluxe. Okay, great. Super deluxe though, $60. It's sold out of stock everywhere except for the US. And I'm guessing that even if you buy it from the store here, they're probably not going to have as good a shipping as they did on here, which if we scroll all the way down to the bottom, it was quoted as about $8 for the, the super deluxe or whatever it was. And less than that, I believe, for the deluxe. Or no, same thing. So that's pretty good. But if you just wanted none of this extra, none of the, extra, content that they offered in mostly deluxifications, you just Google Radlands and you get it right now for $17.97 plus $5 delivery from Game Nerds or any one of half a dozen of these websites. And it's going to cost you literally half of that. Literally. So that's something to consider whether or not this is right for you. Point number two is the other point that I'm really going to emphasize along with point number one, and that's going over the FAQ because this is important. I just did a video about $1 pledges last week, but this is very important here. No $1 pledges here. Anything under a pledge level is going to be a donation, period. So if you want to get in, you need to get it. Now, they're going to say that you might be able to get it from Roxley.com, but if it's like Brass has gone in and out many, many times, and for a long time, periods of just unavailability. Part two of this answer as well is complicated because if you have any interest in some of those other deluxified versions, you might be able to get some of the other Roxley products as add-ons in the Pledge Manager, well, apart from Dice Throne, because apparently that's going to be slightly different. So that's something that you need to know as well. Third, the rulebook is out there. There's gameplay out there. There's walkthroughs of how to play this game. So the gameplay is no mystery. It's a re-theme of Metropolis from like 2009. And you can go over to the Board Game Geek forums and get the synopsis of how they've changed the auctioning and how they've changed the set collection and how they've changed the endgame scoring and they've made it modular and they've affected how many unique buildings in the sense of the numbers of your buildings that you're going to be bidding are. And that's where my Ra comparison was, because in Ra, you also have unique bidding numbers so that nobody has two of the same. They've also done the wonders. They've also looked at the workings of those discs that you're going to be collecting in terms of the set collections and the bonusing, the end game scoring condition bonuses for going out and when you go out, as well as how some of the objective cards from the first edition have now instead become shared objectives between all players. Just giving the game more depth, balancing it, rebalancing it overall to make it a just, frankly speaking, better game. But the point stands as point number three is, do you want an area control set collection auction game? This is at heart an auction game where things are not ultimately going to be under your control because of the nature of how you're laying these buildings out, and other people are just going to be able to outbid you potentially for the spots you want. The core concept of that is no different, has not changed, and if it does not interest you from that aspect, you should be passing on this no matter how beautiful and how much cost savings this is. Point 4, and this is going to be the controversial one. I would argue that this is one of those games, especially in an auction bidding set collection, area-esque control situation, although it's not really area control, it's placing your buildings in certain areas in order to get the things that you want. This is going to be much better at a higher player count. I would make the argument that even though the rules, the description of the game has it as a 2 to 4 player game, if you are looking at this as solely a 2-player game, I would recommend other games. I would recommend other types of games. 2-player auction bidding games in general do not function nearly in the efficiency and the full-scale epitome of their greatness at that count compared to 3 and 4 and even 5, although this one doesn't do 5. And so if you are primarily looking at this as a 2-player count, I would pass on it from that aspect unless you are absolutely, absolutely in love with what you are seeing. Slight tangent on this point as well is that there is no solo mode. There is no full automa mode going to be made, going to be official in any shape or capacity. So if you're a solo gamer, well, you should know auction and bidding games are not your bread and butter in the first place. And the last point that we're going to talk about here is that this is, by the nature of the auction bidding mechanism, this can be a little bit mean. It's not straight up take that, because there is no direct interaction in terms of you hitting, taking out, attacking the other people, but there is going to be some cutthroat nature of that sense just by the sheer auction mechanic in the first place. And if you're not familiar with auction mechanics, well, that's just the nature of them. It's not, head-to-head combat, but it's more, I am going to cut you off at the knees to prevent you from getting the thing that you need in the first place, more Euro style than it is Amerithrash. If you're not a fan of meanness in that sense, this might be something you need to reconsider, because that is where you're going to potentially run into it significantly on a turn-by-turn, auction-by-auction basis. So that's it. Those are my thoughts on Skyrise. Things that you need to consider whether or not it's right for you. Ultimately, I think this game, just like Roxley's other showings, are going to be absolutely, absolutely stand-up solid. Especially when you go and you compare to the issues that they literally list out and say, we have improved this, we have taken care of this, we heard this criticism, we have adjusted this from Metropolis, and you can see it in terms of just how it shines, not only on the page aesthetically, but just with the gameplay if you watch any of that. But I can tell just by the rule book that it's smoothed out definitely some of those issues. I would be lying to you if I didn't say that I am super, super interested in this game, so my own bias there. But it goes back to the Radlands question for me. I have a retail copy of Radlands that I picked up for, literally the Amazon price that I showed you. And I'm very happy with it. I'm never going to play it out enough that I'm going to, wear the cards out or anything like that. And you don't really need a playmat, so do I need the deluxe tray? I just ran into a deluxe tray issue that I thought was more aesthetically pleasing than functionally pleasing with a recent review that I just filmed. So I feel mixed feelings about that, but it's also potentially 3 times the price at that collector's edition for the same thing, which is very, very similar to the Radlands issue in the first place. Ultimately, I'm going to end up with a copy of this game in my collection. I am that enamored with it right now. But will I back it on crowdfunding? That is the real question, and that's where I leave it to you to say, how much do some of those things that I mentioned matter? Especially that's why it was number 1. So, there you go. My thoughts on Skyrise. Thank you for checking it out. Let me know if you're interested. Let me know what else I should do this video on in the future. As always, thanks for watching. Stay classy. Have a great day.